Good evening. It's now 6 p.m. and the regular session of the Planning Commission of the City of Lancaster. Please come to order. Tonight, our invocation will be offered by Reverend Bauer of St. Columba's, is it? Or Columbo? Anglican Church. Welcome, sir, and please approach the podium and offer the invocation if you'd all stand, and then remain standing, and Commissioner Cook will lead us in the pledge.
Let us pray. O eternal God, through whose mighty power our fathers won their liberties of old, grant, we beseech thee, that we and all the people of this land may have grace to maintain these liberties in righteousness and peace. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. A prayer of St. Chrysostom, the patron saint of preachers, Patriarch of Constantinople, who died in the year 407. Almighty God, who has given us grace at this time with one accord to make our common supplications unto thee, and dost promise that when 2 or 3 are gathered together in thy name, thou wilt grant their requests. Fulfill now, O Lord, the desires and petitions of thy servants as it may be most expedient for them, granting us in this world knowledge of thy truth, and in the world to come life everlasting. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost be with us all evermore. May the souls of the faithful departed through the mercies of God rest in peace. Amen.
Thank you.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Another roll call, please.
Commissioners Diana Cook.
Present.
Miguel Coronado.
Present.
Cassandra Harvey. Present. Raj Molly.
Here.
Fabian Teresiano.
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Hall.
Here.
Chairman James Rose.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public business from the floor. If individuals are unable to stay through the entire meeting, we offer a 10-minute period at this time if anyone cares to be an early speaker, and you would have the opportunity to address us for 2 minutes per person. Do we have any early speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
No requests for that, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, thank you. Any person then who would like to address the Commission on any action before us tonight is requested to fill out a speaker's card that you can find here next to our Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Corbett, or at the rear of the chamber. And once we call the item and hear a staff report, then we'll call upon you individually. Your speaking time is 3 minutes each. However, applicants have an appropriate period of time, and they're not limited to any time restriction, so they may address us and give us a full discussion of their project. First action item tonight is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 15th, 2014. Have a motion, please.
I move that we approve the minutes from November 17, 2015.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. The next items are new public hearings, and if there's no objection from the Commission, I would like to take 2 and 4 first, and then we'll take item number 3 last in the public hearing. Is that all right with everyone? All right, thank you. So, without objection, public hearing is open on conditional use permit 10-22. The applicant is Porter Ridge Solar, LLC. Do we have a brief staff report on this item?
Conditional use permit 1022 is a 38-megawatt solar facility of approximately 80 acres bounded by Avenue H, Avenue H8, 80th Street West, and 90th Street West. The applicant is requesting their final one-year extension to take it to February of next year in order to finalize some details before they start construction, the beginning part, January-ish of next year. The conditions are the same conditions that they've had for a while with 2 minor exceptions. We moved some of the street dedications from an offer to dedicate, an offer to dedicate to a dedication, so they have to dedicate it outright. And the other one was adding offer to dedicate for 82nd Street West, along the western boundary of the property from, I believe it's H4 to H8. All other conditions remain the same. I'm going to be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. There may be some. Anyone have any questions, comments? None? All right, then. Do we have an applicant or anyone wishing to address us tonight on this matter?
Yes, I have a speaker, Mr. Chairman, Jack Piggott.
All right, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. So, I'm Jack Piggott with First Solar. I represent the applicant. And first of all, we filed an uncontested hearing letter, and we agree with all of the conditions. I wanted to report that I know you've approved this initially in 2011, and it's been extended a couple of times, and you're probably wondering if the project will ever be built. We've purchased the site in fee, and we've got power purchase agreements now to sell the output of the power, and we've executed our interconnection agreement with Southern California Edison and have authorized them to start procurement work. And the reason that we've waited until 2016 is to get those agreements in place, and also it takes a fair amount of lead time to build the interconnection facilities. But it's all underway now, and our intent is that we would start construction in December of this year or January of next year.
Very good, thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions of the speaker?
One of our biggest concerns is blowing dust. Are you going to deal with that, and you're going to pound the posts in instead of grading off? And
the land is all pretty flat already, and it doesn't really require grading to speak of, and we'll follow all of the best practices. We've got some experience building power plants in the Antelope Valley now, and we use water or dust suppressants to keep it in place. And once the construction period is the period where you're at greatest risk for dust, and so we use those methods to control it. And once the project is in place, though, and we put a dust control, apply dust control, and reseed the land, there's really very little dust that blows once the project is complete.
one of the things in there said about a phone number for your neighbors out there to be able to call. Do you have that prominently displayed if somebody has an issue?
If we don't yet, we will. There is a sign up there now with our phone number.
Thank you.
If I can just add, when they start construction, they are required by the Air District rules to have a sign posted with contact information, and based on recommendations from the Planning Commission, we no longer allow grading of solar facilities. The only thing they're allowed to do is grade their interior roads, and any pads that they would be paving for things like inverters or collector subs, everything else that cannot be graded at all.
That phone number, it doesn't come to the city, it goes straight to the builder.
It goes directly to the applicant or the person in charge of construction who has the ability to fix the problem at that time.
Then if it spills over, then the city steps in.
If the city receives a dust complaint, we will contact the applicant directly and the Air District directly to get it resolved.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Have any other speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
No other speakers on this item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So then, without objection, I'll close the public hearing. Consider a motion on conditional use permit 10-22.
I'll make the motion that we grant a one-year extension to February 11, 2016, based on the findings contained in the staff report, subject to the revised condition list attachment to resolution number 1050.
Second that. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The next item is item number 4, which is conditional use permit 14-17. So without objection, the public hearing on this matter is open. Good luck with your project. The applicant is Apple Social LLC, better known as Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar. We received, for the record, we did receive an uncontested letter on this. However, we'd appreciate a brief staff report.
Good evening. On this, the city received a conditional use permit application. This conditional use permit number 14-17 for a type 47 alcohol license, which is for a bona fide restaurant. It's for Applebee's Bar and Grill. They would be located on the southwest corner of 10th Street West and Avenue K. The building currently exists. Previously, there was a Japanese restaurant in that location in which they did sell alcohol. At the time, the city did not have in place an alcohol ordinance, but any new alcohol that is licensed that is obtained within the city requires a CUP. So Applebee's is seeking to get a CUP application approved for a type 47 alcohol for a restaurant.
All right, thank you. For the record, we received some corrections to the initial publication of the agenda, correcting the applicant's name and the name of the project and so forth. At any rate. And as well on Resolution 1502, I'm assuming all the members received the corrections?
Yes.
All right, very good. Does the applicant care to address this tonight, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, I actually have 2 speakers cards, Mr. Chairman, Brad Miller and Larry Bird. I don't know if they're going to speak together or separately.
Welcome, Mr. Miller and Mr. Bird.
No real comments, just here to answer any questions that possibly might come up in regards to the
Say that again?
No real comments, but just here to answer any kind of questions that may come up during the application process.
All right, very good. Thank you. Anyone have any questions of the applicant?
It's not going to turn into a nightclub or anything. It's just going to be a family-style restaurant.
Absolutely not, yes.
You know, because we've had kind of some issues with that in the past. So
I can assure you, it's not our style. It's not our way of doing business. It's responsible service of alcohol is very important to our company and to our brand. And we would obviously do everything we can to uphold those standards.
So is it a company store or
It is a franchise,
it's franchise, so how many stores do you have?
about 482.
Say again?
482 across the country.
And this will be set up similar to the Palmdale?
Absolutely. Actually, very, very similar to the Palmdale location.
More successful,
Actually,
no doubt.
he's my general manager of the Palmdale location.
It's going to be more successful, no doubt, right?
He is. I can speak to that.
Yeah, I've been running the Palmdale location for about 4 years now, and just the, everything's been going up and up in positive direction, that kind of thing, and the company is finally, recognizing the area as, a place to grow, and that was, really kind of awesome to hear that, we're doing such a great job there that we want to make Antelope Valley, two restaurants as well.
Very good. I personally look forward to your opening, and
Thank you, sir.
And I did notice, or I have noticed in the past, that some of your neighbors tend to park in front of your prime spots. I'm assuming those are employees of other tenants in the center. However, there's certainly adequate parking to the east and south for those employees of those tenants, and I would assume that you'll direct your own employees to park there as well.
Absolutely, Chairman.
So old folks like me won't have far to walk, right?
You have my word.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You got some more
They will
questions?
honor your senior discount.
Have what?
Senior discount.
They do.
With ID only, please. Just say the word, you got it.
Senior discounts, huh? How old do you have to be to get one?
How old are you?
92?
You're qualified.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Too much fun. All right, then. Do we have any speakers on this item?
No additional speakers on this item, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, then it would be appropriate to close the public hearing without an objection and consider a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 15-02 approving conditional use permit number 14-17.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? Please vote. Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
Motion passes 7-0.
Very good, thank you. Best of luck with your project. And the last public hearing before us tonight is conditional use permit 1405. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. It is, the applicant is Love and Grace Christian Fellowship, and I'm assuming we have a number of speakers on this. We haven't had a crowd like this since, well, I won't say since when. How many speakers do we have, Mr. Ludicky? More than 10?
I have 5 separate speakers cards.
All right, very good. All right, public hearing is open, and may we have a staff report on this item, please?
Good evening, Chairman Bose, Commissioners. This is conditional use permit 14-05. The applicant is Love and Grace Christian Fellowship. The location is 2052 West Avenue L. This is on the south side of Avenue L, on the east side of 21st Street West, a couple of properties west of 20th Street West. The request is for the construction and operation of a 12,726 square foot church and to allow an existing 3,613 square foot residential structure for classroom and office uses in the rural residential zone, RR1 zone. The project is categorically exempt under CEQA Section 15332 since the project is less than 5 acres in size and is categorized as infill development. Public notices were mailed out to property owners within a 500-foot radius north of Avenue L for an urban designation, and within a 1,500-foot radius south of Avenue L for the rural designated areas. The 12,726 square foot church includes a 3,483 square foot sanctuary and assembly area, and also includes classrooms, offices, a nursery, and other accessory areas. The existing 3,613 square foot residential structure was being used for church services, but will instead be used for daycare purposes and offices. We did subsequently receive a letter from Love and Grace on January 19 stating that the structure will instead be used for pastoral residency. Parking and landscaping will be provided for the overall site. The use warrants 78 spaces based on the square footage of the assembly area, and 97 spaces will be provided. The main hours for the church will be Wednesday nights and Sundays. The applicant is conditioned to build improvements on Avenue L, including pavement, curb and gutter, landscape parkway, and meandering sidewalk. The applicant will pay a fee for the future construction of a raised median in Avenue L. The applicant will also be conditioned to improve 21st Street West, which is along the western edge of the project site, to rural residential standards with pavement, rolled curb, and a 10-foot parkway. Ingress and egress will be provided on both Avenue L and 21st Street West. Staff is recommending approval for the church since it provides a good buffer between the urban uses north of Avenue L and the rural residential uses south of the project site. As referenced earlier, we received a letter from the applicant asking that we, quote, amend, reconsider, or remove, unquote, in summary, all street conditions. A copy of the letter was provided for you for your review and consideration. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, and there undoubtedly will be some. And as you pointed out for the record, the January 19, 2015 from the applicant is a matter of record. We've all received copies of it. We also are aware that we did not receive, I should say, an uncontested letter. However, the application as well as the site plan clearly defines the conditions that are standard conditions of improvements. Is that correct?
Yes.
So is there anything unique about the conditions of this particular project from any other church that we've considered in the last 6 years?
These are development conditions that are consistent with any other development requests that we may receive for church use or otherwise.
Okay.
Was there any grant money available to improve that street at any time in the past or in the future?
I'll let the city engineer respond to that.
Yes, at one time the city had applied for and received grant funding to improve Avenue L. This has been many years ago, and actually, as part of that grant, the city was required to come up with a 50% match for the project, which was around $3 million that the city would have to put forward towards the widening of Avenue L, essentially from 20th Street West to 30th Street West. When it was time to budget that money, it was decided that we didn't want to spend our resources to improve the street. And we forfeited the grant and have given up the funding and will not be proceeding with a widening project.
If our church applicant wanted to try for the grant, what is the approximate cost that they're going to face on those street conditions?
I'm not sure what the cost is immediately adjacent. They're only required to do the frontage, the improvements immediately adjacent to their project. So I'm not sure what the share of this would be. They are only required to widen 4 feet of street, and then they're required to put in curb gutter and a meandering sidewalk. So the width that they were conditioned to improve is actually less than what we were considering when we did the grant application previously. They're widening to 42 feet to curb face. We were going to go to 52 feet, but because of conditions that we now know of and volumes on Avenue L, we know that we don't need that additional capacity and that additional lane. So it is minimal on Avenue L that they're actually having to widen.
And 21st Street West is not the frontage, that's all supposed to be improved? It's not paved now, is it?
No, 21st Street West is currently a dirt road, and so they are conditioned to improve it to our rural residential standards. I believe it's, sorry, I don't have the plan with me. Looking for a cross-section. I believe we're asking them to improve 34 feet of pavement with a rolled curb, and we're not requiring any sidewalk on 21st because of the rural nature of the street, and we don't typically require sidewalks on rural residential streets.
They don't have to have rolled curb on both sides of that street, just their side?
No, they do not, just on their side.
Are they, in the letter, does it object to improving 21st also, or is it just the frontage on L?
Suppose we can ask the applicant when they address us.
Okay.
I can read verbatim what was provided. On the second page of the letter, the applicant requests that the following items be amended, reconsidered, or removed altogether. Number 1, according to the CUP conditions, under the section streets, all 10 items listed. So within those 10 items includes conditions for street improvements for 21st Street West. And then there are also number 2 and number 3 on the letter. Number 2 refers to standard conditions in Resolution 10-23. Number 17, 18, 19, 27, 28, and 30. If you look in the standard conditions, 17, 18, 19, 27, 20, and 30 all reference to street improvements.
So their main ingress and exit from the church is 21st Street. They did not come in off of Avenue L.
There is a driveway off of Avenue L.
Is that paved now?
Brian, there's some street views for the project, and these are the existing. Well, they're not existing conditions. These are from Google Street View, so they were taken probably a year ago. But the existing conditions are similar to what's shown on the slide.
I think the answer to the Vice Chair's question is no, there's no paved access.
No, there isn't.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't recall recently we've had a couple of temples and churches go up in the area, and I don't recall amending any conditions on those construction rights. Is that on those construction sites, I meant?
Yeah, those projects also have conditions attached to their approvals. We do, under some circumstances, work with the applicant on timing and in some cases, phasing of the improvements. But they were still conditioned to provide those improvements.
Those considerations typically are taken up by the director. Typically?
Yes, if there are circumstances of phasing and so forth, we generally do that at a staff level. We may put restrictions on operations until they complete improvements, or we may allow them to phase them in over a period of time. The difficulty with that, of course, is enforcement of it and trying to make sure that it gets done. And in some cases, that hasn't gone as smoothly as we would like. However, I can think back to several circumstances where we've approached it this way, and ultimately, in all cases, the improvements were either ultimately installed or they, in the case of one that we're dealing with right now, they're well on their way to being installed. And in those cases, we had to work through, or in some cases give restricted times that they could actually occupy those facilities. We understand the nature of churches and their nonprofit status. We try to work with them where we can.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments before we hear from the applicant and the other speakers?
I just want to get clarification from staff. Is that 17, 18, 19, 27, 28, and 30?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Colin.
Anyone else? All right, then.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure who is speaking as their representative, but I'll allow them to.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening, and you are?
My name is David Cowan. I am the pastor and the owner of the property.
Good evening.
This is my wife, Daphne Cowan.
How do you do?
And
I'm Kironzo Dalberry. I'm facilitating with the city engineers the project.
And of course, you know Bishop Hearns.
Mayor Emeritus.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
We are the owners of the property, and the reason that we took on this project is because of 5 years ago when they said that they would do our street for us. And we thought those things were still in place. Then when we came before the board, they told us that we would have to do the street improvement. Now, we have no objection to 21st Street, none at all, but Avenue L, and then them saying that we have to do a median down the middle of the street, those things are going to be way past our budget. We have allotted only $2 million to do the project, and I know it's going to exceed that, but we looked into some prices, and that section is going to cost us about $800,000 in order to do, and to do up to your specs, so that's why we launched the opposition, so we could either get Lancaster to stand in agreement with us or assist us with it or give us additional time to do it, all right? We're a growing church. We're benefiting the community. We're doing a lot of community projects. But like they said, we are a nonprofit organization, and we don't get a whole lot of money. We're not making money to do this. So we're asking Lancaster's help or time or whatever they can do in order for us to do the project. Okay. Bishop Hearns.
Thank you.
Good evening. I would just like to say that we're not only trying to build a church. We're in the community, and we've been in this particular community for almost 7 years. And the plans for the property are not only just to have church services, but we plan to have an after-school program. We're presently feeding the hungry. We're doing about 800 people a month, and we need facilities to house the donations, the huge donations that we're receiving, to package the food, to store the food. And we're also involved in supplying blankets and coats and clothing to women's shelters every Christmas. And we are also involved in the Angel Tree program. We also have a pageant that we're presently doing this year. We do it every other year. We're going to have over 20 participants, young men and young girls, that we're teaching social graces and etiquette, and I'm sure you will agree that that's needed for our young people in this day and time. And the proceeds of that project will go towards scholarships, and we've been involved in scholarship programs since we stepped on the property. So we want to do so much more, and we know that by having these facilities, it would be a safe haven for young people to come, and especially after school, since this is a latchkey community, and children will be able to come and get the skills, the technical skills, computer skills, and be taught the way they should be taught, because a lot of them are missing that home environment with their parents working down below. So I just wanted to make a point by informing you that we plan to do way much more than just have church services every Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, and to the Honorable Commission, thank you for the privilege of coming before you. And I understand the system that normally I should be called up by the card. If it's okay to go ahead and speak, I'll do that. If not, I'll wait.
Speak.
Okay.
Before you get started, though, I have to ask, what did you do to your foot? Little surgery?
I took time to break it.
Oh, my. I'm sorry to hear that, but you're healing okay.
It's doing very, very well. They put a boot on me out at Kaiser, and other than the clumsiness of it and the heaviness of it, it's really causing my foot to come together in a good way. I appreciate you asking.
And you folks understand you're the applicant collectively, so you have as much time as will allow you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so very much for the privilege of being here and knowing most of you. In fact, I know all of you. But let me just speak to a couple of things. One is I think most of you sitting there recognize that churches don't have any more than they can have faith to the people who come to their churches, and that's how we have to make out our budget and get there. And with them believing way back that this would be paid for, and then running into that is really a very heavy thing for them to do. So I come on their behalf, having pastored 50 years right where I am, not in the city, but you all know where our church is, on 100th Street East and in the county park. So I would hope that you would be able to make whatever changes you can make to the conditional use permit. And of course, I recognize, and I've already told them, that you're not going to change anything that has to do with safety, and I would not want you to. They would not want you to. So whatever you can do along that line, and then secondly, those things that they have to do, I would urge you to do everything you can to allow them to go ahead and delay having to pay for that now, and give them additional time to do that. And at the same time, if they meet the requirements in the construction time, is to allow them to go ahead and open. That would cause them to grow. That would cause them to receive a little bit more money. Because the more people we get into our churches, most of the time we can get a little bit more money. Now, the other thing I want to talk to is that I have known these people for many years. I even know the big bishop back here who had, in other words, they come from a long line of preachers and bishops and leaders in the church, and I know that they will do what they promised to do. So whatever you can do along that line, I certainly would appreciate it, and I thank you for the privilege of coming before you. And I have no problem with working with them and going back. I don't know if my license is, I used to be a registered civil engineer with the state of California, and I still remember the principle, but I haven't paid my dues in a while, so that may mean I don't have the license, but I do have the knowledge to help them with it, and I'd be glad to work with him. And Mr. Ng, too, thank you so very much for the privilege of talking to you.
Thank you, Bishop.
Now, me and Mr. Dahlberry are here to answer your questions.
All right, thank you. There may be some.
In your letter, you said that you objected to all road conditions, and then you said that you would do 21st Street.
Well, we had to keep that option open. Maybe your hearts would have been good enough to say, well, we'll do 21st Street too, so.
But if you didn't do 21st Street, you'd be driving in and out on a dirt road.
Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But we had planned to do 21st Street. That's not a problem with us.
That's also part of inside of the specs for us to do 21st Street.
Yeah.
Well, the specs included the Avenue L, but then you objected to it in your letter, all road conditions.
Do apologize for that. It's mainly for Avenue L, based upon identifying that you guys weren't going to be assisting or picking up the bill on that.
Well, there was a grant that I heard that you were talking about earlier that somehow didn't happen, and our planning director said that he's open to allowing time to go by that you could do that, but we did have time go by. We had that grant available years ago, and then we had to let it go because progress wasn't made. If we made conditions to where we would not have Avenue L part of it, but conditioned that you had to do 21st Street, but Avenue L would have to be completed in a time frame. What kind of time frame could we expect that you would agree to?
We're looking at almost 5 years in order to get there.
After the construction of the building.
But it also depends on us having occupancy as well. Once the parking lot and the structure has been built, so we can grow, and that way we could secure that $1 million loan we're going to need to do the street as well.
I have no more questions.
Go ahead.
Is there a threshold of time that we have to be cognizant of as far as if we were to allow an extension?
Actually, the way the staff report's written, the conditions of approval are standard conditions that we adopted in 2010, which we have imposed on every development that's come before us. I don't recall negotiating off-site improvements ever across the floor. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't recall ever doing that. Do you recall that, Mr. Luedeke?
I'm sure that it's happened at some point in my time here, but it is not the preferred manner of doing this. I did hear a number tossed out as far as the amount that they have available in their view to spend. I want to say this and not make it sound like I hope that it's clearly understood what exactly the scope of the improvement is that we're asking for. And I think Michelle addressed pretty well the fact that the original grant or the original funding that we had received would have widened the street further. The city made the decision that it didn't need to do that because there was no real need to do that widening, and there's not any foreseeable need to do it. So what we're talking about is essentially kind of finishing off a small portion of where the existing right-of-way is of Avenue L. I would feel uncomfortable just from my own standpoint trying to say, well, you can wait this many years to do this and this many years to do that without staff really having a chance to kind of sit down and look at it a little more comprehensively. We may be able to come to some kind of resolution on it. We certainly have been able to do that to some extent, as I said, with some other church and religious organizations in the past. But I would hate to come up with some agreement here, adopt it, and then we now have a planning commission adopted schedule of performance, and suddenly 2 months from now they say, well, we can't meet that because there's this issue, or the city looks at it and says there's a reason that we shouldn't be doing it in this particular sequence.
So then, we have a letter that contests all of it, but then we have an applicant that's looking to agree to some of it. So obviously, there should be more discussion and rewriting and of stuff like that before we continue on.
Suppose, depending on how this commission takes up an action or considers a motion before us.
I have a question for...
Go ahead.
Is there a way to continue or postpone this matter?
You can certainly offer that motion, and if it's duly seconded and properly voted on, yeah, we can continue. But I think we ought to flesh out the applicant's concerns before we might consider doing that, if that's okay with everyone. So I have a few questions, others may have some. So you put yourself before us, so I won't apologize for the questions. However, I have some experience in the construction industry. I have certainly some experience constructing churches. I don't want to sound negative, but it seems to me for a 20 or 12,000 square foot facility with typical off-site improvements, that a $2 million budget is pretty low from my chair. That's your issue. You spoke of occupancy. You're currently conducting services out of the 2,028 square foot building that's defined as a family room here, right?
Yes.
So that's an existing non-conforming use, if I understand the use correctly. Would that be correct, Mr. Whitaker?
Yeah, that would be the correct understanding.
Right. So there's no improvements, there's no off-site improvements now. And you're parking in the dirt, you're coming and going out of the onto Avenue L and 21st and so forth.
We're not using Avenue L to go in or off the property.
Well, you may not be, but my personal observation is some of your parishioners do. Now, I'm not taking issue with any of this stuff. I'm just trying to get information here.
Certainly.
So, what's your plan if we approve the conditional use permit? One of the conditions, condition number 10, I believe it was, wasn't it? Requires a certificate of occupancy of the existing facility in conformance to all the code requirements. I mean, do you understand what that means?
That means that the facility that we have now has to be brought up to code.
Right. And if you have questions about that, if you haven't posed those questions, maybe the city engineer can enlighten you a little bit while we're sitting here, what that really means.
That would mean that the existing structure would need to be in compliant with the California Building Code and fire codes and other applicable city codes that would apply in order to operate a church facility within the building. Chun maybe could expand on what planning might be applicable.
That includes Title 24 issues?
Yes, I believe it would.
What was that?
Title 24 code requirements. I believe that's the Green Energy Code.
Anything else?
Oftentimes, in a conversion from a residential to an office-type occupancy, there may be improvements pertaining to accessibility, such as restroom facilities, and that may be different than what you would have for a residential structure.
one thing that I would like for you guys to keep in mind is that this property was pre-approved for CUP, and with that, as far as the specs of the current residents, we have that as well, so we're aware of that.
But you're going to continue to offer services in a portion of that building, is that correct?
The building is really our primary residence, okay? And we were basically using that, what we call our family room, to have services in.
Okay. All right. Not to play on words here.
Okay.
The 2,000 square foot structure south of the living facility,
Correct.
you're using as
Yes,
a
sir.
church?
Yes, sir.
And you're conducting services in there on Sunday and Wednesday and like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just want to be clear. So, this is really a challenging issue for me personally, and I'm sure for the members here today. When an application is brought before us, you hired an engineer to prepare a plan which demonstrates all the improvements that are in our conditions. As the applicant, you folks presented this to us. This is what we're considering. So, it may be in your best interest, my opinion only, to suggest to us that you may want to continue this matter or potentially even withdraw it before we get further down the road. This is a really challenging issue for me personally, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, but difficult.
I'd like to say something. We all believe, well, I'll speak for myself. I believe in church. I believe in the goodness and community that church offers. I think it strengthens our community. But with that being said, we have to err on what's fair for everyone. We have to make sure that the environment is safe and that it's in compliance. We would like to see you guys grow. We'd like to see you offer our community more. But we have to be responsible, and we can't lose our objectivity of that. So when we sit up here with trying to be fair for all, and that's our job. So we're not trying to be negative, but we are being very honest and realistic.
We receive that.
Back in 2010, actually in 2009, some members of this commission at the time took up the issue of standard conditions for all projects in the city. And we recommended the city council, who adopted an ordinance that set these conditions. So we took the leap to standardize conditions, which then puts the blanket over everyone. So I just want you all to be clear on what we're talking about here this evening. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Anything to say? Anyone? All right.
I have a
How
question.
about you all? Go ahead.
What would be your recommendation for us to move forward?
The requirement of your application was consistent with the development requirements of the city. Your application said that. This document says that for all intents and purposes you intended to conform to all the requirements of the city, which are outlined in the conditional use permit requirement. So
if we were to remove our contested letter and follow your recommendations, and you give us time to do what we need to do in order to handle the street issue?
It's only my opinion, but to attempt to adjust conditions from this body without, we're not staff, we're not trained planners, we're members of the community. For us to say, for instance, it's okay, just go ahead and operate for the next 5 years, and when you get enough money, go ahead and put it in the streets. It's really not equitable, at least from my chair, to all the other folks and all the other churches in the community who have been burdened with the same requirements and have had to conform to those requirements. As Mr. Ludicky pointed out, there have been concessions given and consideration given for reasonable periods of time. Reasonable periods of time may be 6 months, a year maybe. I can't speak for Mr. Ludicky or his staff, but typically those are the kinds of things that happen, and they might only be one or two. You have to have public sidewalks, you have to have driveways, you have to have streets, you have to have curb and gutter and sidewalk, you have to have water, you have to have all these things to operate safely. And as Commissioner Cook pointed out, it's a matter of public safety that we're really addressing here. So, what the other members may be willing to do until there's a motion offered, we don't know. But we give you the opportunity to say as much as you want to say, and then the other speakers that are here tonight certainly can offer their opinions as well.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a...
I'll go right ahead, yeah. You guys are all together, so
yes, we are.
We're here as long as you want to be.
Thank you so very much. I would really beg of you, if you would, to allow the pastor and his staff to work with the staff here at the city and give an opportunity to make sure that they understand everything is required. And I believe, knowing Mr. Ludicky over the years that I was here sitting as the mayor and everything, if there's any way to help, I know he'll help us with that. So I would beg that you to lay it enough time for them to work with the staff. That would be my humble request to you, if you would do that. And while I was sitting there, by the way, I thought about when I was sitting on the council, was vice mayor and mayor, we did work with the Lancaster Baptist, which they had a big offsite. I mean a very big one, which had to do with the underground of electrical, I believe, along 40th Street. And we did give them a chance to do it, and they, of course, have, as you know, have built a city out there. There's no question about it. And it's a great help to developing all that east side of Lancaster, for which there was nothing out there until they got out there, and they helped us to build the east side, for which I live on the east side of Lancaster. So I beg, if you would, to allow them to work with the staff and see what can be worked out, and then come back to you. That would be my humble prayer.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you have anything more to add?
No, we agree with Bishop Hearns.
All right. Thank you. Any questions of the applicant?
No more questions for the applicant, but do we table this at this time, or?
Not necessarily. I think we have other speakers that have taken their time to come here tonight, so we probably ought to listen to them first, and then we'll decide. That's all right. Thank you very much.
Bishop Hearns' words were very wise.
Pardon?
Bishop Hearns' words seemed very wise to me.
Yep. Do you have other speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
I have one other speaker slip, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, all right.
Dejuan Cowan.
Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner and Commissioner, everybody here. Thank you guys for seeing us today. My name is Dejuan Cowan, and I am the son of our pastor, David and Daphne Cowan. And my position is just to come in and be with my church and my church family as we make this endeavor. They asked me to speak because I'm a product of this community. My mother is an educator, and that's one thing that she didn't mention. Has worked with the Antelope Valley School District for years. We relocated out here from Los Angeles. Originally, not the best place for me, I didn't think, because there wasn't really much going on in the Antelope Valley. Wasn't really much going on for young people in the Antelope Valley. Now, this was in late 90s, mind you. Since then, there's been leaps and bounds. I went to Quartz Hill High School, graduated from there, was accepted to the University of California at Santa Barbara, where I was a sociology major. Since then, I've been in a position to go all over the world traveling, working in an entertainment capacity. And a lot of those skills were skills that were honed, that were shaped, that were molded in that church environment. Not particularly my parents' church, but churches that we grew up in. So I stand here today as a product of a young man that grew up in that system. And not having that as an outlet, I'm not sure where I would be or where I would have been. But I thank God for that opportunity to have been raised in an environment and to have been even relocated to the Antelope Valley. Because what it did for me was serve as a safe haven in which I could get a world-class education and move or find my purpose in life and move on in doing it. I lived in Japan. I just relocated back to the Antelope Valley, and I haven't lived here consistently for a few years. But since I've been back, I've been able to see life out here, life for young people, life for the community, businesses booming and things blossoming in the area, and it's a good thing to see. And it's a good thing to be a part of. Recently, I've been hired as an educator at Eastside High School myself. So I feel like a young man that's come full circle from coming out here, being relocated to the Valley, growing up in this environment, seeing the pluses and the negatives of this environment, but absolutely becoming a person that's becoming a part of the change. Becoming a part of the change that we need in this valley. So I ask you to consider our request, and I ask you to give us time to deal with the correct people so that we may get this thing right and right for you to consider, so that more young people like me can be affected, not only by church and church services, but by real communal work in the community to help better the young people of our community.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Cohen? What are you teaching at Eastside? What are you teaching these?
I've been hired as a stagecraft instructor.
Oh, really?
Eastside is undergoing a major reconstructing where they're turning the school entity into an academy at Eastside High School, Entertainment and Arts Academy. And being that I've had experience working in the entertainment and in arts.
Well, you got a world-class theater there.
Absolutely, and my wife has recently been hired as a theater manager. So we hope to do great things over there.
Great.
So you'll be seeing and hearing from us.
Great.
Thank you.
Do I have any other speakers?
No other cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We'll certainly poll the audience. If anyone else cares to address us before we close the public hearing, you're certainly welcome to, if you'll fill out a card, and we're more than happy to listen to what you have to say. No? All right. Thank you very much. So, public hearing is still open, and
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Did you? I think we do have one additional speaker.
All right. Very good. Take your time. You can fill that out when you're finished, if you wish.
I'm going to ask her to put her name down, Mr. Chairman.
Got it? All right. Good. Thank you.
Michelle Blossom. Thank you.
Evening.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Blossom, and currently I'm an adjunct assistant professor at Antelope Valley College. I stand before you letting you know that I, too, am a product of this community. Early on in my career, I ended up attending Antelope Valley College, going on to Cal State Bakersfield, from there going to Cal State Northridge. I have been a member of Loving Grace for a long time, and I've had a 20-year relationship with Pastor Cowan and Daphne Cowan. And I just wanted to let you know that we do have some upstanding people in our congregation who actually believe in community and family. And we know that that's very important in this society, especially when we see that there's a lot of drug activity, gang violence, single mothers in our community that need assistance, and need assistance by way of attending church, by a way of getting educated, by a way of having opportunities to advance themselves in some type of educational careers and goals. So as Pastor Cowan did state, it's not only a church, but it's a church that is on the move and on the drive to be able to allow people to have further assistance, not only Christ-wise, but in continuing education. So that's one of the things that we promote. We want to promote. We want to participate in other activities. We want to be able to put in requests for proposals. We just want to grow in the community. So therefore, we're asking you to please find it in your heart to give us the consideration to do the necessary improvements, do the necessary things that we need to do in order to work with your staff so that we can continue to be a pillar in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blessman. Anyone else? All right, then. Public hearing is still open. Since we have comments, and I have questions, actually a technical question, and Assistant City Attorney. To leave the public hearing open and continue this matter for a period of time, that would be an appropriate motion to make, to continue and leave the public hearing open.
Certainly, yes.
However, the other option we have before us is a recommendation to adopt the resolution.
That's correct. Somebody could make a substitute motion, and then that would take priority, of course. So that's your...
If that does in fact happen, I hope you'll keep notes, because...
Most certainly, and this is, of course, recorded, so we'll have that on record.
Thank you. So, any further questions or comments from the members? Is it your pleasure to close the public hearing?
If we close the public hearing, then this doesn't give them any chance to talk with staff and to continue to modify the positions that they've taken.
It closes the public hearing, there's no further public input, and you have the choice of either approving the resolution as presented or voting it down. It seems to me that's the only thing you have. If you leave the public hearing open and offer a motion to continue for a set period of time, say 90 days, then the matter will come back to us, and staff will then give us another recommendation or the same recommendation. I have no idea. I can't predict the future. I can hardly remember the past. So that would be appropriate?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
All right.
It's my understanding that that was what Bishop Hearns was asking for, was the public hearing to be left open.
So, what's your pleasure?
So it almost goes back to my original question. And I don't know from Mr. Luecke's vantage point what's appropriate, 90 days, I know that's notional, what you were just mentioning, as far as moving it out, forward, to the right, the date, revisiting it?
Well, from a staff perspective, we would request no sooner that it be brought back no sooner than the March meeting, which would be the 16th. That's partly because of the timing here in January, where we're already a week beyond the normal time, and we would not be in a position to finish this before a February meeting. So no sooner than March the 16th. If you went out to April, I believe it's April 20th, quickly checking. Staff is quite happy to meet with the applicant further. I think from our perspective, our expectation, even as recently as the study session that we had, or the special meeting 2 weeks ago, was that the applicant was essentially in agreement with the recommended conditions. It wasn't until the letter was received that we were aware there was I guess this depth of concern. So we would be more than happy to meet with them, see if there's some kind of phasing or other approach that we could undertake. But as I said, short of really meeting with them, and particularly with whoever is handling their engineering side, we're not in a position to give that to you at this point.
So a minimum 90 days. That's really what I heard him say.
Is it appropriate to ask the applicant what would 90 days do, how it would
Public
impact
hearing's
you?
still open. If they'd like to chat with us some more, we're more than...
What are the implications for 90-day push-out?
Well, that would give us time to talk to Mr. Brian, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name.
All these people.
Yes, everyone, and come to an understanding of how we can move forward to it. So 90 days is fine for us, as long as we can get appointments with them.
Okay.
You do understand, when it comes back in 90 days, it could be a replication of exactly what's before us tonight. I mean, that could be an outcome.
Yeah, we understand that.
Thank you. So what's 90 days on the working planning calendar?
Essentially, that would take it to the April meeting, April the 20th. I believe it's the third Monday.
April 20th?
I believe that's the third Monday in April, yes.
So can I make a motion to leave public hearing open on resolution number 15-01 until the April 20th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting?
Is that a question or a motion?
It's a motion.
I second.
So the motion is to continue the matter till April 20th. Is that correct?
Yes,
That is
that's
correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I believe you need to vote on that substitute motion, please, if you would. Thank you.
My fingers are ready. I'm ready.
To leave the public hearing open. That's all right. So, without an objection, the public hearing is open, and the motion before us is to continue the matter until April 20th. That'd be right?
That's correct.
Everybody agree?
Agreed.
All right. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Matter is continued to April the 20th, regular meeting.
Good luck with your discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. We have one item of continued business, however, it's a brief report.
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, we have just not had the time to pull together information for the temporary promotional signs ordinance. We will attempt to have something available for you at your February meeting that you can actually discuss, and I don't know if it'll be in the form of an ordinance yet, but hopefully at least to the point of some discussion on potential standards.
All right. Thank you. Anybody want to give further input to our sign ordinance? No. Director's announcements. You passed out a notice of the Planning Commission Academy March 6th, 7th, and 8th, or thereabouts.
I generally don't address you from here on director's announcements. Given budgets and what they are, we were not budgeted for attendance at the Planning Commissioners Institute this year that's given usually annually by the League of California Cities. However, one of the speakers that will be at that conference, in fact, the closing speaker, will actually be here on the 4th of March to address the city of Lancaster. And the reason for this is that this is an organization that I particularly belong to. The gentleman that is speaking to the league is a person that I have hoped to get here to speak for probably the last 18 months. It's an opportunity as we look in our city forward over the next 50 years as our council is concerned. The gentleman's name is Chuck Marone. You may have heard of it because I've put it in several presentations that I've provided. The specialty of his organization, Strong Towns, is really looking at the relationship between the fiscal health of cities and the development patterns that they're built under. That's a very, very deep concern, particularly for suburban areas, but for cities within our nation in general. And we are looking at getting their expertise, their assistance, as we begin the dialogue in our city as to how we need to look at our future. I've got a short video that comes from their website, and it's about three minutes in length, and it kind of gives a summary of really where they are looking at going and what their organization looks at when it looks at cities and their fiscal health. I'm asking that as commissioners, you keep the night of March the 4th open, because I think this is an opportunity that you're going to want to be a part of, and you're going to want to listen to the message. I'm not going to tell you that it's an easy message to listen to, and I'm not going to tell you that it lines up with everything that we do. But it's something that I think is worthwhile, and what an opportunity. We get them 2 days in advance of their debut before the League of California Cities meeting.
Everybody else is saying.
Every city thinks it is unique, but they're not. They're all fundamentally the same. We all have the same ordinances, the same building codes, the same road standards, and we all financed our growth in the same way. And so, we're all fragile in the same way too. At the same time, everywhere.
I'm not here saying what everybody else is saying. You know, how big is the tax increase going to be and who's going to pay for it? How deep is the service cut going to be and where is it going to be felt? It's critical that we see the third variable at play, the third variable being the current pattern of development. As long as we continue to build in a way that gives us short-term growth today, but massive obligations in the future, there's no way that our cities are going to avoid bankruptcy. We've had decades of the most robust growth any society has ever experienced, and we're still not wealthy. The problem is that the growth is creating these enormous long-term obligations. The way we're growing, the way we're building our places, long-term does not make any financial sense. We need to have a conversation, not about growth, but about productive growth. About ways of experiencing growth that actually makes us wealthier over time.
Building productive places is not rocket science. In fact, for generations, regular people without master's degrees or zoning codes built spectacular places. How did they do it? It's simple. They just copied what they knew and understood. They built great cities and towns, bit by bit, slow and steady over time. Our question then becomes, what incremental steps and small investments can we make today? What does productive growth look like in a 21st century city? We have toured the continent exploring these questions and the problems that led us to them. We have to change because our cities can no longer maintain themselves. But that change does not have to be scary.
The main determinant of future prosperity for cities will be the ability of local leaders to transform their communities.
What time is he going to be here on the 4th?
We have not set the time yet for when this will occur. I want it to be late enough that we can get a good cross-section of our community present, but I don't want it to be too late that people are turned off by the time. So I'm hoping we'll start maybe around 6 or 6:30, and the curbside chat, which is what he does, probably is about a 2-hour time. So. But I think you'll find it thought-provoking and interesting, and it touches on a subject that, quite frankly, isn't dealt with a lot, and that's that relationship between development pattern and fiscal health. And it's one that we, as a community, really, really need to take a close look at. And as planning commissioners, you're right at the forefront of that kind of discussion.
You said we may not like it. Like what we hear.
You may not. Part of it doesn't. The message, as they said, and I think there's a reason that the narrator indicates change does not have to be scary, but it does involve, as my staff will tell you, rethinking some of the basic ways that we've looked at doing things, let's say, for the last 4 to 5 decades. And, sometimes you can't tell things until you've gone a little ways down the road. And this is one that I think is worth taking a look at.
1946 forward.
And where will this take place, Brian?
We've talked about several venues, but my guess is it will likely be here in the council chambers.
Great. We'll put it on our calendar. March 4th, or you said March 4th, right? Wednesday the 4th?
Correct. I wanted to have this discussion with you earlier because if I wait till your February meeting, it's only a week and a half prior to that time. So.
All right, so the opportunity for our newest commissioner to experience the Planning Commission Academy is not funded this year.
Unfortunately, it is not. I was able to get it for last year, but was not so successful for this year.
Since I didn't attend, but I was funded, isn't there a way?
Well, I can tell you that the city gladly took that unspent money and reallocated it in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in San Francisco again?
No, it's actually, that's one of the shames. It's actually, I believe, in Newport Beach.
Newport Beach.
It tends to bounce from different places from year to year, usually north to south.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
maybe I should make a inquiry.
Be my guest.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, you didn't have to say anything. I'm, going to do it anyway. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Mr. Liddicky. Do we have anything on our agenda? Ladies and gentlemen, anything you want to add? No? Okay. We have no public to address us, so there's no need to announce public business from the floor other than to say public business from the floor, and there's no one here to address us. So, anything further from anyone? No. We stand adjourned to our special meeting for agenda review Monday, February 9th, 2015 at 5:30 p.m. And our regular meeting is actually the fourth Monday of February, correct? Rather than the third?
Yes.
Because of President's Day holiday?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you all. Appreciate all your input and hard work tonight.